Well, got the day off work, so I got some comments on that video about Ferguson and that twitchy bitch and that. And they were a little like this. I'll go with Mr. Lepton. Even though I specifically said that this black guy wasn't shot, I don't think, because of racism. Despite this, Mr. Lepton goes on and on like, can you show with traffic reports and arrests that white racism is a thing? Now, I mean, instant reaction by me is, are you a total fucking retard? I mean, seriously. But if I'm going to be more generous, it's a typical human reaction. Now, human society is very complex, with many subtly interacting parts, and it evolves in a very organic way, but I'm going to try to thread this out one thing at a time. But first, just to forestall retarded fucking comments like that, I'm just going to not pander and say this. Racism is not a thing, it doesn't exist, shut your fucking mouth. Now that I've said that, you have no excuse not to switch on your fucking brain and hear what I'm saying. Okay. Now, here's how this works. I'll talk about liberals, but first, liberals aren't the problem. They're useful idiots. If you think liberals are the problem, you yourself are a useful idiot. Useful for whom, you ask? Our primate nature in conjunction with our capacity and desire to create a rational reality that neglects aforementioned primate nature. Now, liberals, they say this and that is racist. Now, racism doesn't exist, but there are some things that almost everybody can agree are racist, like the KKK, lynching that guy, burning crosses on his lawn. Okay, I think we can all get down that that is racist. But then, liberals will just keep going. They're like, well, you know, look at the socioeconomic stats. That's clearly institutionalized racism. Black guy didn't get the job. Institutionalized racism. That guy said the word nappy. Black people have nappy hair. That's racism. Right? And because they do this, now maybe you can agree on some things are racism, but knowing that liberals say this stuff, and then when you try to say anything else, they'll find ways to discourage you. That's what ideologies do, by the way. They say they have a narrative, and then it neglects a great number of things and nuances, and if you try to interject them, they'll find a way to either force you to conform to their ideas or antagonize them. It's part of the machine. So they might say, if they're being generous, oh, you just don't understand. It's because of the system you live in. You need to be educated. You're not educated on this. Let me educate you. Very fucking condescending. Forms an antagonism. Or, at worst, you're clearly a racist. The racism about you is just palpable because you would say that. Shit like that. So, people who don't agree with these types of things, well, a black guy gets shot because he's, you know, and he's unarmed. All the liberals will say, oh, look, this is clearly racism. Well, because you have a reflexive mental defense against liberals saying that shit, you will immediately find a rational explanation that is not racism. But you've already failed to think because you've accepted the terms of racist, not racist. And once you've come up with an explanation of how it's not racist, you're like, well, thinking done, I've said my piece, problem solved. Useful idiot. Now here's where it gets just a little bit complex. Once you come up with your rationalization of how it's not racist, you're like, well, that cop was in danger. What was he supposed to do? He was justified in shooting this unarmed man. Because that's what happens. Would have happened to a white person too. Oh, well, now you have that in your mind. Right up here, you have that justification. That guy, it's not because he's black, it's because he had it coming. Okay? Now, I'm 33, and anyone who's my age and has any kind of memory remembers back in the day when no cop would ever shoot an unarmed man. They didn't have tasers and pepper spray. They had a fucking stick. And they'd like beat that guy with the stick first. And maybe if that didn't get the job done, then they'd shoot him, okay? But that has evolved in its own right, and that's complex in its own right. But once you start accepting that that's okay, that's justified, and you're doing it to defend your political turf against the liberals, well, you're unthinkingly accepting a pretty ugly thing. So, okay, black people, well, I mean, it's not racism, this was justified. And, you know, more and more black people get gunned down, the more and more you reinforce this justification. Well, the cop perceived he was in danger, what was he supposed to do? Well, I'll tell you, then it doesn't have to be black people, it can be white people. And then what's considered a justifiable use of force just gets broader and broader. And then one day, my friend, you are going to have it coming. And when that day comes, if I'm anywhere nearby, the first thing I'm going to do is, in my most bitingly sarcastic tone, say, "Who, oh who, could have foreseen this?" And then I'm going to try to pull your chestnuts out of the fire, but fat fucking chance I'll succeed because I'm not goddamn Superman. Now, this goes along with the militarization of the police. Because the defense contractors, they like to maintain their corporate power and wealth by selling more weapons, but this isn't a conspiracy, it's mutual interest. They pay off the politicians who want to maintain their social power, so they accept the money and help disseminate these weapons to the public. But then there's also that ongoing ossification of the social strata that inevitably occurs in these types of formalized systems. And in fact, increasingly aggressive and less tolerant police forces are a banal, tedious, and cliché symptom of a civilization in stages of decline. Because as the power and wealth is consolidated upward, there's more civil unrest. There's more need to constrain it. And the less tolerant the police are, the more and more risk-averse people are. The more likely they are not to do anything out of the ordinary, not to do anything risky, just to accept their lot in life and not think about it anymore. Because, I mean, they could get gunned down by these increasingly aggressive police. And also, consider the mentality of police officers. Well, back in the day, when you couldn't use lethal force against an unarmed guy, and you were investigated even if you used it against a guy with a knife, well, it made a certain type of person apply to be a cop. A person with the capacity for self-sacrifice, who's willing to put himself in harm's way to protect the public's interest, to endanger his own life, just so that he isn't gunning people down like a vicious barbarian. And as we progress and the police are less and less tolerant, well, it brings a new type of person to the job, a person who can exert power over others, who can gun people down without getting in trouble, who don't have to risk their own lives. In short, bad people. And of course, they're just getting more and more weapons. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, and by the way, more useful idiots. Then there's the people who respond by saying, well, you know, black people kill black people more than anyone. I mean, why is it that black communities are so rife with crime? And then the liberals, also useful idiots, go, look at that guy saying that shit. See, this justifies what I was saying about it being racism in the first place. Everybody telling their stories, defending their political turf. And all the time, the water gets hotter, degree by degree by degree, and we're all too busy squabbling to jump the fuck out. Alright, now I don't have a lot of solutions, but I'll tell you. Step 1, get your head out of your fucking ass. I don't like to be all emo, but do you have any idea how frustrating this is for me? Do you? I mean, I get why you see the world in these terms, because you see this shit happening. Of course you want to come up with a story. You want to come up with a solution. You want to name who's the problem and not say that you yourself are a part of it. Not realizing that you're all useful idiots, propelling us toward oblivion. Have a nice day.